Hi everybody, you're listening to Bookworms on Arrow 92.7 FM, your friendly community radio station, and being broadcast on Wairarapa TV, Channel 41. So this is Bookends.
No, it's
not. I did it again. I can't believe I did it again. This is Bookworms, a program all about the books, and not necessarily just books, but books, plays, poetry that we found interesting throughout our lives, even more recently, that we would like to share with you. So today I've got with me, my name's Steve, by the way, and today I've got Marilyn with me today. So hi, Marilyn.
Hi, Steve.
Thanks for coming along.
Oh, thank you for filling in too at the last minute. Yeah.
I won't say who's supposed to be running this show, but that's okay. My pleasure. Yes, so I've got some stuff that I'd like to read, but I think I'll kick it off first by handing straight over to Marilyn, who's got something really fascinating for us today. So it's over to you, Marilyn.
Well, I have a book called Our Last Best Chance, The Pursuit of Peace in a Time of Peril, and it's written by King Abdullah II of Jordan. Just a little bit of a background to who he is. His Majesty, King Abdullah II, the eldest son of King Hussein and 43rd generation, direct descendant of the Prophet Muhammad, became king of the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan in 1999. Before that, he served as Major General and Commander of Special Forces in the Jordanian Army. He's married to Queen Rania, with whom he has 4 children, and he lives in Amman, Jordan.
Okay.
So why did I decide to bring you this book?
I have no idea.
No, well, I went to Jordan with a group a few years ago, and I found it a fascinating place. I thought it had so many possibilities. I mean, we went, of course, to Petra, and the scenery was just wonderful. But the whole thing sort of gave a really positive vibe in the Middle East, and we'd come through from Israel and had visited, Palestine and Bethlehem, where things were not good, going through walls and all that sort of thing. And suddenly we were sort of into Jordan, and it just seemed to be a place where things might happen. And when I saw the chance of this book, I thought, well, that'd be really interesting to read a bit about who this man is, who the king is. He says in the book, he says what the challenge was, and he says this was written in 2010, and he'd been king since 1999. Right. He wasn't meant to be the king; it was meant to be the King Hussein's brother who was meant to take over, but Hussein said no, he wanted to pass it on to Abdullah. So I hope in this book to
Do we know why?
I think because he realised that his son was the better person to follow through, and he'd done so well. He'd taken him a lot of the time on his tours, and so Abdullah met lots of different leaders, and in fact he was his bodyguard at one stage when they went on the secret mission to meet up with one of the Israeli people to try and put through a peace, because Hussein has always wanted a peace with the Palestinians and the Israelis, and Abdullah was still in the army at that stage, but he was left on the boat while they went off, and he said he didn't know what was going to happen if it came dawn and he was in his boat in the middle of Israeli territory, and what was going to happen. So I think Hussein was trying to sort of mentor him, and he realised that he would be the best person to succeed him.
Right.
But he said, I hope in this book to challenge some of the false ideas about the region in which I live. Too often when people in the West hear the words Arab, Muslim or Middle East, they think of terrorism, suicide bombers and wild-eyed fanatics hiding in caves. But I want them to associate our region with multi-million-dollar IT startups in Jordan, Nobel Literature Prize winners in Egypt, and the historic architecture of Damascus, which unfortunately, of course, by now is not probably there anymore.
Right.
One of the most dangerous ideas to have emerged in recent years is the suggestion that the Western Muslim world are two separate blocks, leading inevitably on a collision course with each other. This concept is ill-informed, inflammatory and wrong. For over 1,000 years, Muslims, Jews and Christians have lived together peacefully, enriching one another's cultures. And he says for sure there have been conflicts and everything, but these are political, rooted in the motivation of a certain time and context rather than manifestations of an eternal cultural hostility. So, yes, and all the way through he talks about when he did become the king, how he was, and he received sort of medals and awards for doing most for peace in that region. But he went to, just to give a little bit of a background, he was sent off to school because things were a little bit tense, I think, in the Middle East when he was a youngster, and he was sent off to school in England for a while. He wasn't greatly wrapped with that.
Right.
And then he went on to go to America and went to college in America. And then because I think it was his father or one of the family had been he wanted to go to the army, and so he went to Sandhurst and was in the British Army and went right through there. And then there was a very funny story of him, which is in here. He had armoured vehicles, and they had these new armoured vehicles, and so he had a convoy of them, and he was in charge, and they were going down the M4, and he decided that he'd sort of try and work out just how fast these armoured cars, which they look like tanks.
Yes.
And so
Humvees.
And they were heading off down the M4 going at a rate of knots, and they got stopped by the police, and the policeman said, "Well, I never thought I was going to stop a fleet of tanks on the M4 for speeding." So it was, so there's some lovely photos in the book as well. His wife has done a lot also for women, and has tried to sort of make women more acceptable, because there's still
some of those countries like Saudi Arabia are very oppressive to their women.
So, absolutely. So his wife has done a lot for them. There's just a little bit here. He said one of the most frustrating misconceptions is that all Arab women are oppressed, illiterate and kept at home to look after the children. Many women across Jordan and the Arab world, like my wife, go to university and then achieve great things in their professional careers. Statistics for the school system in Jordan show that every single year the highest grades in high school exams are achieved by girls. And our modern, educated, successful professional women have more in common with the same in London, New York or Paris. Some of these women choose to cover their hair with a headscarf, while others, like Rania, do not. But this tells you nothing about their abilities or professional achievements. The traditionally dressed Jordanian woman wearing a headscarf may have a PhD from Harvard, but as Rania likes to say, we should judge women according to what's going on in their heads rather than what's on top of their heads.
Yeah, that's very good.
So I think they've done a huge amount. And he met so many. I mean, he was there with Clinton. He was with Bush, and of course, with the Iraq War, and of course that made a lot of difference to the economy in Jordan, because that was where they were getting their oil from, and of course, that all sort of fell through. There's a very funny story here.
So what's their position with? I mean, they're obviously US and UK friendly, or more friendly to the West.
Yes, I think yes, yeah. But they have problems with Israel, and knowing how tight Israel is with America, and they've always tried to. His wife was part Palestinian, and so he's tried all the time to try and sort of negotiate for Palestine and in Israel, and to try a two-state, but it's
it's a
doesn't get very far.
uphill battle.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But yes, anyway, they'd been to a big thing in Davos in Switzerland, and then he. Not all my work in that first year took place in such elegant settings because it was lovely in Switzerland, and he came back. A few months after becoming king, I paid a visit to Sudan. It was quite a contrast. As we were about to touch down at Khartoum Airport, I looked down from the plane and could not see any welcoming committee. But out of the corner of one eye, I caught a glimpse of an old T-55 tank rumbling towards us with soldiers clinging to its side. I was momentarily alarmed when we landed and saw the welcoming committee, and I realised this was the presidential guard sent to patrol the area and ensure security. President Omar al-Bashir invited us to join him in an aged Mercedes saloon car. I sat in the back with the president, the faded leather seat covered by polished wooden beads, and my brother Ali, at the time the head of my personal security detail, sat in the front next to the driver. As we sped off to the heart of Khartoum, Ali pointed to 2 bullet holes in the passenger window and asked the driver what were they from. "Oh, that's from the last assassination attempt," he replied. Oh. He did not elaborate. The Sudanese were gracious hosts, and on my return to Jordan, I sent them an official gift of a new armoured car. A few days later, I got a message from the Royal Protocol staff that the Sudanese had sent a present of their own. A C-130 transport aircraft had landed at Amman's airport with 2 lion cubs inside. They'd also sent a warden who explained how to care for the animals, and then he went back to Khartoum. Valuing the symbolism of the gift, but not quite knowing what to do with the animals, I had them put on a tennis court outside my house. When Rania noticed that they'd begun to show an interest in our children, who were just 5 and 2, she put her foot down and insisted that the lions must go. So I re-gifted them to a close friend who liked to collect exotic animals. So there's all these sort of fascinating little sort of anecdotes in the middle of it all. And just finally, I'll just read just the last bit. So it's... My father spoke at a time when trust between Israelis and Palestinians was high, and many hoped the leaders on both sides would build on this foundation. The last decade of neglect has seen trust and hope, this was up to 2010, fall to new lows and has strengthened those bent on destruction. Every family in East Jerusalem and in Tel Aviv, in Ramallah and in Jaffa in the end wants the same thing, a peaceful and dignified life, the ability to fulfill their potential and secure a better future for their children. And they've done they had a huge influx of refugees from Syria and into Jordan. And of course, a lot of that sort of put things out of kilter there too.
Yeah. That's fabulous. So I must admit, I've never heard of the guy. I'm not really up on...
No, well, you don't ever hear of him, you see, but he's done so much in the background trying to negotiate. And as I said, he sort of was with Obama. I think he visited Trump too, and that's in the preface to the new thing. But a lot of things happened with the Arab Spring, because that happened just after he wrote the book.
Right.
But...
But that's good to know, because the only stuff you hear on the news is all the bad stuff. And
that's right.
How the world's going to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah.
So it's nice to know that there's a good side.
And he was a real character, and he just sort of a real family man. You see, with the photos of the family, and he loves getting off on his motorbike, and he's a helicopter pilot, and just pretty down to earth.
Yeah. What's the book again, Marilyn?
It's called Our Last Best Chance. Right. And he went to Oxford and did a postgraduate thing there and all. Yeah.
Very good. So he sounds like he could be really good for the Middle East. And he's been in power
since 1999. So that's
20 years.
20 years.
Yeah.
20 years. Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Marilyn.
Right.
Now for something completely different.
Yes, I'm going to be interested in hearing all about this.
I will need my glasses for this one. So I've got a bit of a thing. I love what I call doggy books, and so if that's a genre, then I love doggy books. The Garth Stein, who wrote The Art of Racing in the Rain, W. Bruce Cameron, who wrote The Dog's Purpose, and a couple of other books like that don't quickly come to mind, which have been made into movies, and I believe The Art of Racing in the Rain has been made into a movie as well. So it's all about dogs, and it's all about like seeing it from a dog's perspective, and I love that. I love that style. And Susan Wilson is another lady who writes doggy books, and I've read a few of hers, and this is her latest one, and it's called The Dog I Loved. So The Dog I Loved is set initially. There's two ladies that are featured in the book. One is a young lady who was incarcerated for murdering her spouse, wrongly, of course. She did kill him, but it wasn't murder. So she was incarcerated, and another lady who was a paraplegic after made a paraplegic after being in the war in Syria, Iraq, I forget which one. And so she's trying to rehabilitate, and the girl in the prison system gets an opportunity to train dogs, and they're not guide dogs, they're helping dogs, they're working dogs.
Yes.
And of course they come together because the vet who's paraplegic needs to have a dog to assist her, and the girl Rosie in the prison system is the one that's trained the dogs. So that's the essence. But the dogs, the dog that Rosie trains is called Shark, and Shark is the dog that gets handed on to Megan, the paraplegic war vet, captain in the Marines. So this is from the dog's perspective, and the dog's called Shark. So I'll just read a couple of episodes. And this is the one where he's going to meet his new person. He's happy to meet this new person. In his short life, he's been cosseted and played with and cuddled and asked to learn certain manners. He's getting better about most of them. This new person has a different scent than the ones he's known since he's left his mother's side. Where all the others carry the scent of the outdoors, this one does not. Her scent is that of inside. But as he investigates her more thoroughly, even going so far as to taste her skin, he understands that she is going to need his fun sense more than any of the other people in his short life. So he flops onto his back and pretends to bite her foot. He is instantly rewarded with that altogether marvellous sound of human laughter. So that's a dog. When he first meets Rosie, his handler, the girl that's going to train him. So and then further on, he gets introduced to his new owner, who's the paraplegic. So again, from Shark's perspective, he's used to being handed over to the person who takes him outside to ride in a car, to meet other people, other dogs, to be mindful of sitting quietly and not barking when it's not appropriate. He likes the person who takes him out, but he likes his person inside better. And now there is another person, another woman, one who doesn't squat to greet him, but requires him to go to her. She never gets up, but rolls around in a wheelchair. And he has begun to adapt his repertoire of tasks to meet her commands. She is so good with the tug-of-war toy, really spot on. Shark finds himself sorry when she rolls out of the room at the end of the session. And he is banging his tail against walls and furniture at the start of the day when he thinks that she might be coming to play with him. He recognises that new word, Megan, as identifying this person. And whenever his inside woman says it, he gets a tail-thumping thrill. He loves Rosie, but he connects to Megan in a way that he doesn't understand, but accepts as correct. So he's chosen for his particular skills at relating to people.
Yeah, it's obvious.
And he considers that's his job. I mean, it's his job to make sure they're happy. And I'll just read this. Just read this last bit. The air in the room was heavy with human distress. He couldn't quite get a read on it. There was that exclusively human sound of laughing. He wagged his tail at that. But then there was this undercurrent of sighing, shallow breaths that suggested something being held back. And then his inside person handed his leash to the person who never stood up. Alert to every nuance of human body language, he still couldn't quite pass what was happening. And then he understood. His inside person, Rosie, was commending him to the sitting person, Megan. His loyalties were being reassigned. He knew that he had achieved some benchmark of behaviour because everyone was happy with him. He was told repeatedly what a good boy he was and what a good boy he needed to be.
So, that's interesting.
I just love it. I don't know what it is, but it's that.
Do they ever have books where it's written in the first person of the dog, the dog himself?
Yes, that was The Art of Racing in the Rain.
Was it?
Or I mean, there's been other books, but that's the one that immediately comes to mind.
Yeah,
and that's really what started me off, because just to think of a dog having human type thoughts, well, what are these human beings doing over there?
Yeah.
It's just lovely. So that's The Dog I Loved by Susan Wilson.
Oh, lovely. Yeah. And now for something completely different. So I've just got a couple of minutes, but I'd like to introduce you to a book called, for those of our viewers who will be able to see this, Whose Boat Is This Boat? Now, Whose Boat Is This Boat? It's by Donald J. Trump, by accident. So Stephen Colbert runs a program in the States on TV, a show on TV, and after Hurricane, I'm not sure which hurricane it was, the one that devastated North Carolina, Trump went over to North Carolina, as he is wont to do, to show the flag,
to wave the flag, to show what a great president he is. And of course, all the comments he made were totally inappropriate, but one that really stuck out was this: whose boat is this boat? When all of this chaos and destruction, Trump focuses on a boat that had washed into somebody's garden and destroyed their front garden, and his immediate thing was, oh, whose boat is this boat? So it was just so Stephen Colbert then put together this book with the help of his team, and it is now the best-selling book on Amazon, the proceeds of which go towards helping the people who suffered in Puerto Rico, the disaster that happened in Puerto Rico. So, but it's lovely, and it's have we got time to read it?
Yeah, just a bit.
Okay, just quickly. It shows President Trump leaving the White House. It's a picture book with a few words. Yeah. So it shows him leaving the White House in his lovely Air Force One airplane, and then he flies to the destruction and chaos in Carolina, goes over, meets all the people, and then focuses on this boat. Is this your boat, or did it become your boat? I won't do the American accent. No. That boat is wiped out. Or not. Wouldn't want to cross the ocean in it. These actual words, this is what the President of the United States said at a moment of disaster and chaos. And do you know whose boat that is? They don't know whose boat that is. To see what we're seeing, this boat, I don't know what happened, but this boat just came here. At least you got a nice boat out of the deal. Have a good time. The end. There is no moral. And a little write-up at the back says, it's an excellent teaching tool for readers of all ages who enjoy learning about empathy by process of elimination. I just love it.
It's brilliant.
I had to buy it.
Yeah.
You too can buy it on Amazon. Whose boat is this boat? The proceeds go towards a good cause.
And of course, everybody, I think, knows who Stephen Colbert is now after being in the country.
Yes.
When travelling around with.
Yes, he's doing a great job for New Zealand. Of course, that was put together by New Zealand Tourism.
That's right.
And we've been watching it over the last couple of days. Have you been watching it?
Only bits, only clips on the news.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I haven't. Otherwise.
Yeah, it's on Prime TV at about 11:30 at night. So we record it. We record it and watch it the next day.
Oh, okay. No, I hadn't realised it. Yeah.
So I think that's all we've got time for today.
What? Yes, but
it just flew, didn't it?
Yes, it did. But certainly a different, eclectic mix of what we've got. Yeah. Well, it's interesting to just see all sorts of different, or hear about all sorts of different books.
Well, I think that was the idea of this program, wasn't it? So because we all like different things, and just the wide variety of reading material there is. Most of it available at the Marston Library. Those wonderful people at the Marston Library do a fabulous job.
Oh yes, I got one from there the last time, the Spine, the Traitor that I talked about last time.
Right.
And I got that from yes.
That's an incredible resource, a community resource.
Yes.
So any of these books are all available at the Marston Library. Go along and help yourself.
I'm not sure where this one is available, but I think I got it in England. Yes, I did.
Ah, okay.
I must have bought it in England, or I bought it at the airport on my way out.
Right.
Yes. It's a Penguin book anyway. It's a Penguin.
Right. It'd be interesting to check to see whether it is.
Yeah.
And like a lot of books, I mean, if you've got a book you're interested in, you can request the library to buy it for you.
Yes.
And they will do that.
Yes, that's right.
So
and also, there's quite a big article on Wikipedia about all his background and everything too.
All right. Well, we better toodle off.
There's another group coming in.
People are coming in after this.
Oh, it's been great to have you on board this time.
Totally different program to the one that was planned, but that's just fine. We roll with the punches. So it's been my pleasure to be here, Marilyn. And thank you for your book and your comments. And that was great.
A Merry Christmas to everybody for not on again.
I think we're going to be on before Christmas. That's okay.
Oh, that's right, because only November.
So thank you all for tuning in and listening to our waffling on. I hope you enjoyed it. Marilyn?
And thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Really enjoyed it.
We'll catch you next time round.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.